Hey everybody. I'm saying hey everybody instead of hey folks. So this video is going to show the evaluating document. This is my demo version of it. I already have a separate video for parts 1 and part 2, which are up here at the top where you kind of write out some tests and test them. What I want to go over is part 3 and part 4. I will do them in my typical fashion where I do one example, then you can go if you get it. And then I will do a couple more examples. Then I'll go on to the second one. So that is what you can expect here. So I'll start with part 3. So I'll have like a second part of the video that'll be marked in the description down below. So you can jump to that if you need to. So part 3 here. So like I said, we've already explained our test for the toy. We've tested it. And now it's really just time for some reflection. So the goal here, the main goal is explain how the solution could be improved. Now I'm going to jump up for a hot second to the rubric. Okay, this is part 3. How could you improve your product? There are kind of 3 levels here. There's one where you just outline how the solution could be improved. So this is like just straight up listing names of improvements and then stopping, no more details. Describe means you give a little more details, and explain is pretty much you give more details. So the other side of this too is I kind of think about like explain is like, what would you really do to make sure that that improvement happens? So what I like to do for these is just start first by listing some improvements. So you could just list improvements. Now we are going with, hang on. I thought I had it next to me, but it was across the room. So the toy that I am sort of evaluating is this guy right here. Which was like a ring toss toy. So as far as possible improvements for this goes, okay, I definitely have a couple. One is that the rings are definitely kind of hard to get on here. They kind of like, they bounce. They're pretty tricky to get on this thing. So I'm just going to just list these out for now. So I guess the improvement, you have to think of it in terms of an improvement, would be make rings. Hey, are we typing? Okay, there we go. Make rings easier to get onto posts. Okay, these are the posts, the rings. So I don't really know how to do that yet, but that's okay. I'm just thinking of improvements. Okay. Other things, I just had to paint the numbers on, and I'll be honest, like I think they look like garbage. I think it would have been way cooler to have the numbers like sort of engraved or embossed out of the surface. So let's make a note about that. Have numbers be clearer. We'll just say clearer. And along those lines too, there's actually like 0 instructions on like what the numbers mean. Like, what does that mean? Is that 2 points, 5 points, 7 points? That's what I was thinking. I don't know if that comes off to people. And actually one other thing is the rings could have been colorful. So I didn't paint those. So make rings more colorful. Okay, so this would, right here, this would get you the lowest level of points. You've definitely told me some improvements, but you haven't really described them. You haven't really explained why each is an improvement or anything like that. So now is where we get into the details, and I have this broken down for you. Like I was describe and explain, it's kind of similar. The real thing is if you hit on these 2 points, then you're like good, okay? So when we think describe how you would make each improvement, well, how would I actually make the rings easier to get onto? I could make the rings bigger. Maybe I put like we call it a chamfer, where I basically like the corner of this is slanted. So it's like an inside out funnel, and it's more likely to allow the rings to go on there. So right there are 2 possible ways I could make the improvement. So what did I say? I could make the rings bigger, or I could put a slant on the edges of the posts. So right there, now I have described how I would make the improvements. Now let me explain why it's an improvement. This would make the toy better because it would make it more fun, as right now it is kind of frustrating to play with. Okay, so that right there, that would get you full credit for just, that first one there. I want to note, I got to say, it doesn't say that there's a limit or a number, a minimum or maximum number of improvements you could have. But if I look at your toy and I see obvious improvements that could be made and you haven't listed them here, that's not necessarily going to be full credit. So that's what you have to think about is like, have I really covered all my bases? Because I always get that. How many do I have to put? 2 or 3. What are the improvements? So if you get this part right now, you can skip ahead if you're ready for it to part 4, which will be marked again in the description below. But I'm going to go through and I'm going to do these last 2, and then I'll go on to that next part. So you can keep watching if you want some more examples. So for part, the rest of this here, how could I make the numbers clearer? I could emboss the numbers to have them popping up, or I could engrave them to have them going in. This could be done by sketching in on shape and extruding up or down. So right there, I've provided exactly, how I think I could make those changes, those improvements. And it's just a theory. It doesn't have to be perfectly right. Why would this make it better? Okay, explain why it would make it better. This would make it so I'm thinking like the paint can rub off. Well, and also it's neater. So the numbers are neater, and it might decrease the chance of the numbers rubbing off. Because right now they're painted. Okay. And lastly, make the rings more colorful. Well, this one's super easy. How could I do that? Describe how I could do it. I could paint the rings. Okay. Duh. I could print them in different colors, but I didn't give you guys that option. So you could paint the rings. And why would this make it better? This might allow the whole toy to look more visually appealing. It might also allow the user to try to get rings on pegs or posts, as I've been calling them, posts of the same color. Okay, so, it's as simple as that. That's how you can write these improvements. If you don't fill up this box, it's not the end of the world. Okay, try your best, get as many as you can. Don't ignore things, all right? Be critical. So now I'm going to move on. All right, so let's take a look at this last part down here. This is how we are going to explain the impact of this product. So this is, as far as the number of these you have to get, it's just like the previous one, the previous part. It's like, be thorough, okay? Think of as many things as you can. My recommendation, again, is to list them here and then come back and explain them later. This, again, if we look up here at the top, all right, outline is the lowest level, explains with guidance versus just explains, which means like explains independently, like no one's helping you. If I look through and your impacts sound a lot like my impacts from this video, that means you used this as heavy guidance and you didn't think on your own. Okay, so don't just copy what I put here. Think about your toy and what your toy does. Almost all our toys are going to have an impact on hand-eye coordination. That was kind of the goal. And I would say in my case, since it's a ring toss toy, an impact should be, improves hand-eye coordination. Right, that one's pretty obvious. What else does mine do? It could be a fun game played by multiple people. Could entertain multiple people. Right. Another thing that I think this toy could do is it could have something to do with math. If you were adding up points, could exercise math skills. All right, so there's a couple possible impacts of this toy. So, your toy definitely is going to have more impacts than this, different impacts. So again, you can borrow these, but be independent in the way that you're thinking about them. So let me go on. I'll explain the first one, and then if you want to stop watching at that point, you're probably good to if you understand. Maybe you understand already. But let's explain these. Okay, so how does it improve hand-eye coordination? Well, by forcing the user to exercise their throwing and aiming ability, it is definitely going to improve their ability to use their hands and eyes together to get stuff done. All right. So, and that's just in the case of this. If you have like a maze toy, it might be different. Okay. It's probably going to be similar, but it's going to be a different way that it gets stuff done. Entertains multiple people. Explain. People. So obviously at this point, if you get it, you can go, but I'm going to go through these last two. They're pretty straightforward. So could entertain multiple people. How could this entertain multiple people? People could take turns throwing the rings and tallying their points. All right, pretty simple. Is there any other ways this could entertain a group? I mean, that's pretty much it. This math skills one, that might be a little trickier to explain, okay? The user, or we'll say a user, might have to do simple math to add up the points they earn by landing the rings on the different posts. Okay, so this is really just like, how does your toy cause this impact? Why is your toy valuable? What does it do? And this one, really, this part of this document, pretty straightforward. Everyone should be able to get this stuff. Even if you don't have a toy made, if you had an idea for a toy, you could still explain the possible impacts of that toy and the possible improvements. So take a stab at this, folks. Good luck, and please ask if you have any questions.